Welcome to A Song of Dan and Josh, the second half of Take the Black Live, the show where fan-sided zone Josh Hill and I talk through every chapter of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire novels, picking them apart to see what makes them work, what makes them not work, and just what makes them tick. Why are the books great? Why are they not great? Where do they come up short? Where do they soar to the heavens? I've read the books multiple times, Martin's novel, Song of Ice and Fire. Josh has never read the books. This is his first time through, though you have seen the show.
Yep.
And we just talk through chapters one by one. And we hope you join with us and maybe read along. Right now, we're almost done with the first book in the series, A Game of Thrones. And we are at Daenerys IX.
Yes.
Which is
a very sad chapter.
Yeah. I was going to say the most downer chapter yet, but we did come off Ned dying in front of his daughter's eyes. Maybe not quite that far, but pretty...
It's very distressing. It's a distressing chapter.
She is at a low point all the way through.
Yes.
And by the way, from Bet's Long Break asking, when's the premiere date? Our best guess, Bet's, is April 28th, is what we are guessing. And Grant Edwards says, booyah, here comes the hype train, choo-choo. Couldn't agree more.
That's right.
Okay, Daenerys IX.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to talk about is this chapter opens with a pretty lengthy dream sequence. A pretty evocative one, I thought. Lots of things kind of flash through Daenerys' mind into the text. Waking the dragon recurs. She dreams about having sex with Drogo, dreams about her brother angry and dying with molten gold pouring down his face like you do. She has visions of the man her stillborn son will never end up being, like her son if he was a grown man. Visions of Rhaegar with her face, visions of herself giving a painful birth to her dragon. And now the stone was gone, and she flew across the Dothraki Sea, high and higher, the green rippling beneath, and all that lived and breathed fled in terror from the shadow of her wings, so becoming a dragon.
Yeah.
My question to you is, just what was your reaction to this dream sequence? Was it effective? And do you think this kind of thing should have been kept in the show? Because they never do this on the show. Like, they never did anything remotely like this.
Yeah. Well, first of all, hello, everybody. I think they should have included it in the show, although I can understand why, because it was that first season budget, and they clearly blew through it in numerous parts that we saw.
I mean, they were filming like 18 different places around the world.
So, if this happens, which I guess to your point is we haven't really had a dream sequence even when they've had the budget. So,
they avoid dream sequences. Straight up.
It was very vivid. It was effective. Like, you got it. And it's part of what made the chapter so distressing is because Daenerys, this whole chapter is just so helpless inside of her own mind, inside of her own body, inside of her own world. She just has no way to help herself. And the dream kind of segueing from the last chapter into this one really kind of set the table for this is going to be weird. It reminded me of the chapter with when Catelyn has her fever dream. It's the same thing. It gets it across. And it goes a long way, too, in endearing Dany in a lot of ways, too, because it's like she is this character who you can invest in because she's struggling. She is the underdog here, literally in her own mind. She is the underdog. So I found that was...
yelling at her. She's...
Yeah.
Like, some of the language is very, very brutal. Like the bit where she's kind of giving birth to this dragon. It says like a pain splits her back and like claws out. It's really... It's harsh. And there's been a lot of language like that in these books. I keep going back to that description of the white putting its hand down Jon Snow's mouth. Yeah. Is very evocative.
This also, the fever dream and the language in it and how vivid and visceral it is. Because we know, or I know, and everybody who's seen the show knows that this is rock bottom for Dany.
This is a rock bottom moment for her, yes.
So we don't know this at the time if you're reading it for the first time that this is rock bottom. But as we know, her arc goes beyond this and she starts swinging upwards. But as far as a depiction of hitting rock bottom, I thought that this was very effective because it doesn't get any more scary than being lost in your own mind, being out of control in your own dreams and suffering this pain and torture in this place that you're supposed to have total control over your subconscious. This is literally inside of your head and she is being tortured by her mind. And this is complete rock bottom. So I think that was effective in that way too, where it's setting up this narrative for Dany that this is as bad as it gets. And it really kind of changes her from here. Because she's a different character from here on out. Maybe not necessarily directly after this, but we can reference this and go back and forth and say, this was the bottom for her, and it was a very vivid image of somebody hitting rock bottom inside their own head.
It has a great flow to it. It's kind of got a stream of consciousness thing, which is the cliche when you come to dream sequences, but it's a cliche for a reason. Like you don't write dream sequences like they're literal events that are happening. No. He does a great job of kind of stringing together these weird, disparate images don't really connect to each other, but that's the way it's supposed to feel. Yeah. I did like it. Karen has a comment. They keep repeating, "Don't want to wake the dragon." Yeah. Is it a premonition of Daenerys' dragons being born? 100%. Karen, I think that's it. This is supposed to foreshadow her actually giving birth to the real dragons, them hatching in a couple of chapters from now.
And don't give birth. She's the dragon. Like
she is.
She's the dragon that we're talking about.
She's going to have dragons. So it's all very metaphorical.
It works that way too.
I mean, personally, I actually like that they don't do dream sequences in the show. I think dream sequences, don't you think they can be kind of a crutch for filmmakers sometimes? Just when they're an excuse to get arty and nonsensical. I think they can go wrong really easily. And I actually respect the show a lot for just keeping it always grounded.
I don't disagree.
Flashbacks or dream sequences.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I think that because it was the first season, they maybe could have gotten away with it in that it was already something where you were capturing the attention of people who maybe otherwise wouldn't have their attention captured by a fantasy show. Because we talked about it a couple weeks ago. This was a show that you could mistake for a medieval show coming into it and then get sucked in by all the fantastical elements of it. And I think they maybe could have got away with it. Now I don't think they can get away with it because it would be a crutch that they're being too artsy and they're doing all this and that. But I think maybe in that first season there was a window where they could have been, when they were really kind of creating the shows.
They could have.
But now I don't think so.
Should they have? That's my question.
It depends on who directed
If they would have done the dream sequence, we would have been having like a black and white musical episode by season 5, and I would not have liked that. Good for you for having restraint, Game of Thrones.
You don't want to watch Tyrion doing the old Charlie Chaplin?
Of course I would, but I shouldn't want to. That's a bad instinct.
It's true.
But yeah, of course, I'd be all over it. Okay, really quickly for you and for other viewers out there who might be reading for the first time, George R. R. Martin does, to his credit, set up some motifs here that will recur a lot in Daenerys' story. There's a recurrent vision of her looking at a red door, and she could not look behind her, must not look behind her. There's a door ahead of her, tiny with distance, but even from afar, she saw that it was painted red. Just a little preview. That is a motif, literary motif, that recurs a ton, and he'll use it a lot, so put a pin in it. Have fun. All right. After Daenerys wakes up from her catatonia, from her fever dream, she wakes to a bad sitch.
Yep.
The Drogo's Khalasar has pretty much left. She has like a few stragglers, old men, women, children, who didn't leave with them, because as Jorah explains to her, Khal Drogo's alive, but, he can't do anything, and they're not going to follow him. He's a vegetable. Those Rocky follow the strong, so they are out of here. The Khalasar is broken up, led by a bunch of different leaders now. Drogo led them all before, and now they're like splinter groups. Basically, all the plans have fallen apart while she's been sleeping in this fever dream situation after the birth. And Mirri Maz Duur tells her that her baby was born, but it was born, and I love the description too, with like the wings of a bat, and the flesh sloughed off the skin, and its body was full of grave worms. It was born a mutant freak, and it was stillborn. So Daenerys wakes up to find like everything has gone to hell. Where do we even start with this? Well,
it was. I felt it was very effective in getting across. She just had this nightmarish fever dream, and she wakes up, and the nightmare is reality.
Yes,
it's not as fantastical as the dream sequences, but life is just as
giving birth to a bat-winged grave worm full baby is pretty fantastical.
It is, but somehow it's worse than the fever dream because it's reality.
Yeah.
You would think that is part of the dream, and it's not. So the idea that she can wake up from something terrible and real life is even worse, I think, is an interesting analogy that can be used everywhere.
I wonder if they should have showed that freak baby on TV. They didn't, and didn't do it in the show either. But what could have been? I want to talk about, as always, culpability for a bit, because there's a question here of who's responsible for this. So Daenerys blames Mirri Maz Duur, the witch woman who, revived Khal Drogo, albeit as a vegetable, in exchange for apparently the life of Daenerys' child. So there's a question of who's really at fault here. So is Mirri Maz Duur at fault? Because I don't think she ever lied to Daenerys. Like, basically she said, I can save Khal Drogo. Mm-hmm. She didn't mention that she'd save him to be a vegetable. Mm-hmm. And the only reason Daenerys' baby died is because Jorah carried her into the tent while Mirri was doing this spell. Mm-hmm. And because the tent is all full of dancing skeleton ghost people, they got into her womb and did what they do. Who's responsible? Is it Mirri Maz Duur responsible? Is Jorah responsible? Is Daenerys responsible for wanting this? She could have just let Khal Drogo die.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't have had a cursed womb.
Yeah. I think everybody's responsible here. Mm-hmm. Everybody shares some responsibility for this. It reminded me of the episode of The Simpsons, one of the Treehouse of Horrors, where they get the monkey's paw.
Yeah.
And they get the 3 wishes. Yeah. And Homer's last wish is for a turkey sandwich, but the turkey's dry. So he didn't specify. It kind of reminded me of that, where she's like, yes, I will save Drogo, but he'll be a vegetable, and it will cost you your child, and all of these things. You'll lose literally everything. So I don't think she lied, but she wasn't entirely truthful.
She was not. That's true.
Which is like the weird non-answer gray area of whether or not she lied, but she didn't outwardly tell a lie.
It was definitely a lie of omission, though.
Yes, she was a lie of omission. But at the same time, Daenerys is responsible for this too, because she made the choice of, I want to save Drogo, when she could have just let him die. Jorah is responsible. I mean, everybody here bears some responsibility, and I think that's more or less the point. There's no one true
I think you're right. That
person
is the point.
To blame here. It's a concoction of everybody's self-interest playing a role here. Daenerys wants Drogo to live. That's her interest. We've got, what happened to the witch lady. She clearly had a role to play in this. Jorah, we all know how Jorah feels about these things. So everybody was responsible in my
As
mind.
Kayla points out, or somebody pointed out. Kayla pointed out the call for leading the men to harm the sheepmen. So the whole reason they have Mirri Maz Duur here is because Khal Drogo raided her village.
Yeah.
And as she points out to Daenerys, she was raped before Daenerys got to her. Mm-hmm. She saw them kill her neighbors.
Yep.
I think her lines are, and Julie, you're right that they do a very good job of this in the show and adapt it really well. She points out, look, before you came here, I saw the Dothraki kill a baker I knew. My brother saw him kill a boy I'd cured of the fever like a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Like, they destroyed my life, and they raped me a bunch, and now you're going to come along and say, oh, I saved you. Oh, great, you saved me. Thanks a whole lot. This has been great.
Yeah.
So, I'm only my family is dead. All my people I know are dead. I'm a slave now, but thanks. Like, that's basically her response. And I mean, I think she has a bit of a point. Yep. Like, it's not like she's irrational there. Mm-mm. Like, yeah, she's alive, but she's only alive because there happened to be one kind of nice lady who was with the pillagers who burned down her village, burned down her life, killed everyone she knew, raped her, and enslaved her. Mm-hmm. So the idea that she should be thankful, or that that lie of omission was something she should be ashamed of, I think she has a really good point that, yeah, I told a lie of omission. And you know what? I'd do it again. I am glad that Khal Drogo is dead. He's not going to lead a Khalasar to pillage cities. He's not going to kill anybody else. There's not going to be a genocide. I'm a freaking hero.
Yeah, and I like this idea of, Daenerys...
And Julie says Martin is to blame.
Martin is to blame. He is.
That's true.
That's true. If there's one person to blame, it is George R. R. Martin for dreaming all of this up. I do like the idea, though, that our character, Daenerys, our hero, I guess you could say, isn't flawless. There's people who aren't just going to bow because she is the main character of this story or this chapter or what have you. There are people who are just... She's just this person who is a part of their own revenge scheme. Like, she is not special in that way, which is interesting because she is held up. She's put on this pedestal of Khaleesi and all of these things, both in the book and in the fandom. Like, she's Daenerys. She's a badass character.
In the show, yeah.
And that carries a lot of weight. And the idea that this random nobody character, this background extra, can cause so much damage because of the story that exists beyond Daenerys goes to the whole world building thing that we've talked about with George R. R. Martin many times, and shows how deep these characters are. And I just like the idea of of characters not being invincible to random acts of revenge like this.
I love it too. I love what you said about her not being special, because in any story, we expect the main characters are special. Like, that's just what happens in a story. Like, Luke Skywalker is literally, use your Star Wars reference you love so much, he's like a chosen one.
Yeah.
He is special. Harry Potter is special. He's got a little scar on his thing. Name another big one. I don't know. People are supposed to be chosen ones.
Yeah.
And even though Daenerys is clearly special, she's the last Targaryen, whatever. By the way, this is the first chapter she, like, whips out her titles.
Yeah.
She has a whole long list of them. I'm Daenerys, Stormborn Daenerys of House Targaryen. Of the blood of Aegon the Conqueror, Maegor the Cruel, and Ovalyria before them. I am the dragon's daughter, and I swear to you, those men will die screaming. Fun, intimidating.
Yeah.
And again, it kind of starts her specialness.
Yeah.
But she's, in this world, she's not immune to the consequences of not really even her actions.
Association.
Association. Like, she's vulnerable. They're all vulnerable, and that is thrilling. I mean, this is basically what happened to Ned, who also is supposed to be special, ends up not being special and can be killed. And that's part of what makes the story really good and unpredictable. I love that no character, big or small, is safe, says Kayla Stevenson, and I agree. That leads into my kind of final point. The chapter ends with Daenerys going to her vegetable husband and kind of bathing him, kissing him, laying with him, kind of treating him nice. He can't really respond to her.
Yeah.
And she told herself that there were powers stronger than hatred and spells older and truer than any the Magi had learned in Ashai. Basically, that line to me is saying, like, love will conquer all. But it doesn't. At the end of the last line is like she smothered him to death with a pillow herself.
Love is not immune to smothering by pillow.
Which is another, like, the idea that love will conquer all, then love can, bring people back to life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a Disney idea, right? Like True Love's Kiss, Frozen. I don't know. The one sister loves the other one, so she unfrozens, I think is what happened.
Something like that.
He plays with that here for a second, saying that she told herself there are more powers stronger than hatred, so bring it back to life with love, and it doesn't happen. She smothers him to death with a pillow. Like that's the kind of story we're in.
Yeah.
Where the love conquers all thing is not in play.
No.
At all. And we're in this other kind of story.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a good way to end the chapter.
It was, and it kind of it propels us a little bit on this new arc for Dany, because she was going down one track, it seemed, where it was almost this, not to the same sense of Sansa's Disney princess idea of the world.
But it was a little similar, I was just thinking.
Yeah, it was, because it was the sense of entitlement almost, where she is, she Khaleesi,
all these things she says.
All of these things that she's busting out, and nothing can harm her. She is invincible. She's even like this Princess Diana figure who comes in and is like, I will save these people. Yeah, and then she has this fever dream, loses her demon child, and goes full One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest on her love of her life. So I do like how everything comes crumbling down so tremendously in one chapter for her. It was kind of teetering on the brink with Drogo being ill and all these things, which are kind of the warning signs of that when we talk about with Sansa too. This is not the dream world that you think it is. You need to wake up and smell reality. And now here it is. And literally everything that could go wrong has gone wrong for her, and she's really been reduced to the smallest I think she will be in this story.
Yeah, probably.
Assuming we don't know what happens in the show, but this is the lowest that she can go, and
certainly so far, and pretty much ever. Like it's and it's true for Sansa in a lot of ways too. Like I think that Martin does this a lot, where he takes everything away from a character. Like think of Jaime's hand, or Theon's, genitalia. And in this case, Dany's husband dies, Sansa's father dies, but they reach the low point, and then they kind of rebuild themselves, all these people. That's a common track for him, and a really effective arc for all these people, because you get invested in their happiness, and then in their downfall, and then in their rebuilding themselves stronger, better, faster, more capable.
Yeah.
That's what will happen to Dany, that's what happened to Sansa, what happened to Theon, what's happened to Jaime. and it's a dependable, solid arc that maybe we should do more of in fiction rather than love conquering all the time. Yeah. Not that it can't happen sometimes, but it's fun to have a curveball thrown at you.
It is.
All right. Any other thoughts, John, on Daenerys IX?
No, it was good.
Yeah, it was solid.
It's a solid chapter.
Let's see. What is next? Next week, we will be reading Tyrion something. I believe the last Tyrion chapter in A Game of Thrones. We are almost done. We have like 3 chapters left, and then
out of real estate.
That'll be it.
All right.
And then on to A Clash of Kings.
All right.
Thank you guys for watching. We are available to listen to and podcast from on iTunes and Google Play. You can also join Wick Club for even more of this.
Oh yeah.
More videos, more articles, T-shirts, stickers, party favors of all kinds. That's on Patreon. Go to winterscoming.net for more information on that. And thanks for joining us. And we'll be back here next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central for more Game of Thrones news, more Hill and Dan and Josh, and more fun with you guys. Thanks a lot.